All right. I think everyone can see it, so I'm just going to go ahead. First of all, thank you to Women Who Code and the entire team for organizing this amazing conference. And thank you so much for having me as a speaker. Super excited to be here and dive into this topic that I'm really passionate about, the topic of Web 3.0, what it means, and what does the future of internet look like. So I'm going to talk about specifically Skynet, which is an open source peer-to-peer platform for hosting both content and application. And we'll get to that in a minute. But it is definitely not a talk on the evil Skynet from Terminator series that became self-aware and takes over the world. This Skynet is kind of exactly the opposite of that. While we believe it will take over the world, it will do that in a very different context of creating a better and a freer internet. So just a quick note, when I talk about free means free as in freedom, not free as in free beer. With that, yes, as Safar mentioned, feel free to ask questions throughout the session, post them in the chat, and I can take a look at them at the end. Or you can wait till the end to ask those questions. So a little bit of background on me. I am an engineer by education, and I say education specifically because my current role, my day-to-day is really far from anything engineering at the moment, and my career path has been anything but straight. I worked in the financial and the banking industry for a few years before kind of stumbling upon Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and just fell down that proverbial rabbit hole and haven't looked back. And nowadays I spend a lot of my waking hours understanding the history of the internet, positive outcomes of the internet, and every day we enjoy the benefits of the internet, but there are some negative externalities that are there of the current web. Just trying to understand those and how we can reimagine a better and improved internet. And I'm happy to share some of my learnings with you today. Also quickly, I'm also the founder of Women in Blockchain Boston. So, similar to the mission of Women Who Code, we are very much aligned with that mission of increasing diversity in the tech space. And of course, we are specifically focused in the blockchain space. And our aim is to reduce barriers to entry. Blockchain being at the intersection of technology and finance, the problems of lack of diversity are further compounded. So yeah, if anyone's interested in learning about blockchain, definitely recommend checking us out. That's our website. You can also follow us on Twitter. We host a lot of monthly educational meetups, just a lot of resources for you to understand what's going on in the blockchain space. And one of that resource I want to share with you today is the Beginner's Guide. A lot of people who want to learn about blockchain just kind of sometimes feel intimidated because there's just so much going on or don't know where to begin. And that's why we created this Beginner's Guide so that it's an easy to use guide with beginner-friendly resources for you to understand the different components of blockchain technology. I think Safar can drop in the link to this Beginner's Guide, but I'm also happy, yeah, thank you. I'm also happy to share my presentation at the end so you can see, you can get access to all the resources. And today I'm specifically going to talk about one of the important use cases of blockchain, which is decentralized storage and application hosting. So to do that, let's understand what Web 3.0 is. Let's look at the evolution of the web. So Web 1.0, or web as we know, came about in the early 1990s. It was characterized by static pages. It was the early adopters were just trying a lot of experimentation, discovering the potential of the internet, and building stuff like mp3.com and personal websites and really hacky looking things. Web 2.0 basically was the transition after the dot-com bubble, and it's the web that we know as of today. And with this transition, the emphasis kind of moved from users just consuming the internet to user-driven content, user-generated content, as we all know today. The emphasis moved from like static websites to interactive websites with commenting on profiles or creating profiles and accounts. And I think one of the landmark change was the advent of social networking, or the social media as we know. That came along, this transition from Web to Web 2.0, with, I think, two big trends that I want to talk about today. One of them is just business models. The most dominant business model in the web, or the internet we know, is ad-based. It's all about mining people's data, tracking data, just getting more information on you as an individual and giving you the best ads possible. And that kind of led to this like other problem of data being like the king or queen. And now we know data is more valuable than oil as a commodity, and there are a lot of negative repercussions of that. Privacy, manipulation, and narratives being controlled by a few tech giants, so on and so forth. So there's this vision of Web 3.0 that finally brings us breaking out of these few tech giants that control our world to this vision of Web 3.0, but the model kind of gets flipped. So from a few tech giants controlling our data and the news that gets fed to us, to a more user-controlled internet that is also censorship-resistant. With that, the business models also shift. So from intermediaries making the most of the money right now, with the tech giants becoming billionaires, trillionaires, to a more sustainable creator economy, where users pay creators directly. So according to the inventor of the internet, Tim Berners-Lee, the semantic web, as he calls it, or Web 3.0, is basically a more personalized internet catered to individuals rather than tech giants. And one thing I would like to note is that this idea of Web 3.0 isn't really new. It's just gaining a lot of significant traction now with the advent of blockchain technology. And there are tons of projects that are building this new kind of internet. And I'm going to specifically talk about data storage, decentralized data storage and application as the foundation for, as the foundation for Web 3.0, on which you can build this new internet. So let's dive in. What is decentralized data storage? So the cloud storage infrastructure of today, as we know it, basically most of our internet relies on the cloud storage platforms of today. And these are a couple, big names, as we know, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. They all have this single point of failure. So when Amazon kind of goes down, we know this is a meme also, Amazon US East is down and half of the internet is down. Also, the problem of privacy is super huge in the current web. Privacy is not a feature by default. You have to go extra steps to gain any iota of privacy in the current ecosystem. And a few companies in the centralized cloud infrastructure controls all the pricing, controls the terms and services, and we are all pretty much familiar with vendor lock-in with cloud storage. So decentralized cloud storage is a way to reimagine how we store our data. It's a private, peer-to-peer way of storing data without relying on a single storage provider, and is also extremely price competitive. So it's, I would say it's order of magnitudes cheaper than using any centralized solution. And today I'm going to be referring to Saya, which is a product that we've built. Saya's architecture is what I'm going to refer in this talk, but the concepts pretty much apply to any decentralized storage solution. With that, there are 6 components that kind of make decentralized cloud possible. First, of course, is the peer-to-peer component, which means files or data, are, any kinds of files or any data that you want to store is transferred directly between hosts and renters. So hosts are basically your storage providers, renters are people or companies or entities looking to store data. And peer-to-peer aspect is super essential in being decentralized. You don't want to pass through a centralized intermediary. Second, most important component is encryption, which basically ensures complete privacy. So data is encrypted by default, even before it's uploaded to the network. So neither the host or the storage providers that are storing the data can access your data, nor the blockchain or Saya can access your data. Your files are completely under your control. A third component is redundancy, which is super important to have, file availability and file reliability. Basically, it's pretty common across cloud storage solutions. We in Saya use Reed-Solomon erasure coding, and basically what that does is each file is broken into multiple pieces, and each piece is spread across multiple hosts. So your entire file does not, stay in one host location. It's spread over multiple hosts across geographies. And that's how you ensure redundancy and reliability. And at any point, you only need a subset of these pieces to access your full file. Next component, and a really important one, is blockchain. And blockchain is what, it facilitates this kind of network. And it does it in two ways. So the first component within the blockchain component is called file contracts or smart contracts. These are essentially like the terms that the host and the renters agree upon before entering into a storage contract. You can think of them as digital SLAs. And final component of the blockchain that the blockchain facilitates is the transactions or the payments. So payments happen directly again between the host and the renters. The blockchain ensures that the host gets paid for storing all your data, and also ensures that the host gets penalized if the host breaches any of the terms of the contract. So this kind of gives a quick overview of how a peer-to-peer file storage system works with an incentive layer to ensure that the data is available. Now we can talk about content and application hosting. So Saya, as I explained, is like the layer 1 protocol, which enables decentralized data storage, data backups, and similar use cases. And that's like the base layer. Skynet, on the other hand, is the layer 2 protocol, which is what that means. It's built on top of Saya. And the data that is stored in this peer-to-peer decentralized network, Skynet allows that data to be shared. So that enables use cases like file sharing, content delivery, and even hosting web applications. So what is Skynet? It's a fully decentralized hosting platform for both content and your applications. So you can upload files, you can download files, you can share those files with anyone using this like peer-to-peer system. And also, as I mentioned, you can host stateful web applications. We call them Skynet apps. It's super simple to use, and I'll do a quick demo of how it works in a minute. But all of this, the decentralized infrastructure, is accessed through something called as Skynet portals. So Skynet portals are basically web-based gateways to Skynet. So when I talk about Saya requires a lot of technical know-how. You have to download a special software to run Saya. It's called a node. You have to understand the configurations you have to do to connect with different hosts on the network. You have to understand a little bit about how blockchain technology works. You have to understand cryptocurrencies for those payments. Skynet kind of abstracts all of that away in the base layer and creates this really easy to use, accessible way of using this decentralized network. So it allows developers to tap into like the benefits of Saya without the complexities of decentralized networks. And there are multiple ways. These portals, we have more than 10 portals that you can use to access Skynet network or the Saya network. And these are, some of them, one of them is run by us as the company, but a lot of them are run by developers in the community. And you can also run your own portal, which can be a private portal. The hardware requirements for running a portal, super minimum. You can use a laptop with like 8 GB RAM and you're good to go. So with that, let's do a quick demo. And I'm going to get out of the presentation mode for a minute so that I can do a demo. Basically, sky.net is one of these portals that I was talking about. It's a portal that's hosted by Skynet Labs, but as I said, there are more than 10 plus public portals. You can have your own personal portal to access the decentralized network. And right now, sky.net is free to use up to 1 GB of data per file. So let's go on to Sky. All right, sky.net, and I'm gonna share another screen. I can give you a quick demo. All right. Okay. I see that you can see the screen. So this is a web portal. It's the same as accessing any other website on Web 2. So, the Web 2 experience, even though it's a Web 3 application or a solution. So you can, type in your web browser, sky.net, and you'll get here. Basically, I'm going to give an example or do a demo of just uploading content to this network. So quickly, you can, this is where you would upload your files. You can browse. I'm going to upload the Woman Who Code logo. And what happens is in the back end, it's doing all of those things that I explained for the decentralized network, and it creates something called as a skylink. A skylink is just a unique identifier for that piece of data, and it contains the hash of the file along with some metadata about that particular file. And all you need is this hash to share that data. So I can just share this link with you, and you will be able to access the Woman Who Code logo. And that's just an example again. Or you can, just take the hash of this, you can put it in here, and I don't think you can see that particular screen, but basically what it did was opened up, when I gave it the hash, it opened up the logo for me. And I can just show it to you here how it looks. So I'm going to copy this. There you go. This is all the decentralized magic, but it's like super easy to use experience. And like I mentioned, the portals are interchangeable, and that is super critical for decentralization, right? You don't need to rely on this particular portal to access your data. So if I change it to another portal, say, skyportal.xyz, and use the same hash, there you go. You get the same data from any portal. So the data that you're putting on the network is accessible from anywhere. Your private portal, your public portal is globally accessible, and you can just replace one portal for another, and you're not stuck with one website, or you're not dependent on one particular access point. All right. So this was a very simple example of content. Uploading content, downloading or accessing it, sharing it, but it's exactly the same way how an application can be uploaded to Skynet or hosted on Skynet. So as you see here, there's upload directory functionality. So if you write up your code for your app or your website on your local system, you can upload the entire folder in here, which will include your index.html, your CSS, any other assets that you want to upload. And you can upload that, and you will, in a similar manner, get a Skylink, which will be the link for your hosted application or website. And you can use the portal, or you can use our decentralized APIs, and the APIs will return the same thing, a Skylink for your application. And that's it. That's as simple as it can get to deploy an application on the internet. So I'm going to go back from this demo to my slides. All right, you're back. So this was a super simple example of uploading content. You can do the same thing with anything else. Pretty much, host different kinds of stateful applications on Skynet. Now, having understood like this base foundation layer of like this, global data layer where your data is redundantly stored across multiple nodes, then you can understand the different components that go into building a more rich and complex feature set. So think of it as Legos. You can keep building a layer on top of it, a layer on top of it. So like I said, it's kind of like the data layer. On top of it sits something called as user identities or global accounts. So using a public-private key pair, a user can create accounts, and these accounts are again global in the sense that if I have an account on a particular Skynet app, I can use the same account across any other apps, and all my data is associated with this particular account. And then the final piece comes in is the content monetization piece. This is not live yet. The other components are live. Content monetization is going to be live, by mid-January next year. But basically, what it allows is for creators to add a cost to their content. Content can be anything from like blogs, videos, applications. Like developers can add a cost to their or a fee to their application. And every time a user or another creator accesses this content, the creator gets paid. So this goes back to the discussion of Web 3.0, where it obfuscates the need for an ad-based business model and creates a self-sustaining, creator economy where you no longer are the product and your data is no longer mined, but it's in your control. So with that kind of background, there are tons of applications, 200 plus applications that are already built on this like new form of the web on Skynet, and it ranges literally from blogging platforms to gaming apps to even like a live streaming platform that's built on Skynet, iOS apps, Android apps, GitHub Pages equivalent like Sky Pages, which allows you to create websites on Skynet. And also, media-focused apps like galleries and video galleries and photo galleries. One of them that I specifically want to highlight today, and it's my current favorite, is this. Is this app called Skyfeed, which is a decentralized social media. And you can see it pretty much looks like a Web 2 experience, super intuitive, super user-friendly. The best part is that the developer only needed, I think, less than 3 weeks to build like a, Twitter equivalent on the decentralized internet from the ground up. And so it's the possibilities are just boundless. And there is an Android app, there's an iOS app that's coming, and all of this that you're seeing rests completely on Skynet. There are no servers, there are no other external databases. It's all completely hosted and run on Skynet. And at this point, if you're wondering, is this a niche? Is this something like only a few people on the internet care about? Then that's not true. This example from Twitter itself. So Twitter has this project called Blue Sky, which is basically Twitter's attempt at creating a decentralized standard for social media. So Twitter itself is funding, developers to create a decentralized version of social media. So it's really, like I said, Web3 is not a new concept, but it's gaining more and more traction in recent times. Quickly, as I'm coming close to the end of this presentation, wanted to highlight some of the benefits. Skynet, all the code is open source. There's nothing happening behind closed doors. You can see everything that's going on. You know exactly where your data is staying, where who has access to it, who doesn't, and all that control is kind of in the hands of the users. You can, give access to someone if you want. If you don't want to give access, you can keep your data private. And like I mentioned, data is replicated. It's available globally. You can access it through, your phone, your web browsers, you can access it literally from anywhere. And there is no dependencies on like central infrastructure. So even like to the extreme case where Skynet Labs, that's us building the software, we disappear, the Skynet network and the Psi network can continue to persist and it will not be shut down. And then finally, if you want to run your own portal, that's even more uncensored, gives you even more uncensored access to the network. And then there are specific benefits to developers that I want to highlight. Compared to Web 2 or the web that we all are used to, there are no servers, there is no configuration required. You just create your app and you can publish it. You don't have all the hassles that you have to deal with the current kind of web infrastructure. And also that means that your infrastructure costs are nearly zero. You can play around a lot, you can deploy your apps on it and test things out really quickly and easily. And of course, there's no vendor lock-in. As I explained, the Skynet portals are really fungible. And two important benefits that I think are super critical is that, one, the ease of use cannot be overemphasized. And the ease of use is not just for developers, but also end users. And you saw how the portal works. With just a link, I can access applications, I can access data on the internet. And then the final component is the composability of data. So let's take an example of Twitter, for example. So as of now on Twitter, I have X number of followers, I have my posts, I have everything in the Twitter ecosystem, and it's pretty much locked in that silo. If I want to leave Twitter and go to another platform, I can't take any of that data with me. But that's not the case in like this Web3 version, where if I want to leave a particular application, I can take all of that data because that data is associated with my identity, and I can move that around to another application. And that's important for devs as well. It means that any app that you're building, you don't have to start from scratch. You have access to a rich set of data that's already available in this ecosystem, and the network effects thus can be tremendous. So another example is like this composability that I talk about. Say a developer builds a chat app, right? That can be easily integrated in your app, and you don't need to build a chat app within your app as a different functionality. You can just build on top of each other. And I think that's going to unlock a lot of possibilities in this like Web3 vision. All right, so hopefully this all sounds cool and interesting, but how can you get started? We have tons of resources for you. We have a tutorial that walks you through like creating your first web app. We have a workshop video that goes into like the technical details that I couldn't dive into today. And then we of course have APIs and SDKs that you can play with. SDK is pretty much available in multiple languages that you might be comfortable in. And I definitely want to emphasize that the SDKs are very simple to use. And as you can see, the uploading and downloading can literally be done in like a few lines of code. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely, we have a huge community of developers and people who are interested in this ecosystem, in the vision of Web3. Follow us on Twitter, join us in the conversations on Reddit and Discord, or check us out like our GitHub repository. And finally, if from this entire talk, if you were to take just one thing away from this presentation, I would say blockchain and cryptocurrencies are here to stay. They're not a passing fad, and they have a huge potential both from like a financial industry and like a financial perspective, and also in how like the future of our internet and like the future applications will look like. We as women, as minorities, were left out of like the dot-com rise or the early stages of the internet and like the decisions around how that was built. But I hope that we are an integral part of building the future of money and the future of web. Thank you. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you have about Skynet, about blockchain, about just anything.